Before you watch El Turco, there are 7 important facts you really need to know. This is not just another historical action series, and if you go into it with the wrong expectations, you may completely misunderstand what makes it different. In this video, we are breaking down the hidden facts behind El Turco, why it matters for Jaan Yaman's career, and why this project is much more unusual than many people realize. If you enjoy respectful and clean analysis like this, subscribe to the channel for more. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can also click the join button below. Let's get into it. When people first hear about El Turco, many of them assume they already understand what kind of series it is. They see Jaan Yaman, they hear historical drama, and they immediately think they know what they are about to watch. But that is exactly why this video exists. Because El Turco is one of those projects that can easily be misunderstood from the outside. It may look familiar at first, but once you start paying attention, you realize this is a very different kind of production. So let's start with fact number 1. Fact number 1. El Turco is not a typical Turkish TV series. This is probably the biggest thing people need to understand before pressing play. If you expect the usual rhythm, structure, tone, or storytelling style that many people associate with mainstream Turkish television, you may be surprised. El Turco was built to feel more international from the start. It is not trying to function like a traditional long-season Turkish network drama. It is more compact, more direct, and more globally packaged. That matters because expectations shape experience. If viewers expect one thing and get another, they sometimes judge the project unfairly. But if you go in knowing that El Turco is aiming for a different market and a different style, then the experience makes much more sense. This is one of the reasons the project stands out in Jaan Yaman's career. It is not just another role. It is part of a bigger international positioning move. Fact number 2. El Turco is much shorter and tighter than many viewers may expect. A lot of people still associate Turkish drama with very long episodes and an extended storytelling style. El Turco does not work like that. This is a shorter and more concentrated series. That changes everything. Means the pacing has to be sharper. Means character moments may arrive faster. It means the storytelling cannot breathe in the exact same way a much longer format would. And that is not automatically a bad thing. In fact, for many international viewers, that is actually an advantage. A shorter structure can make a series easier to binge, easier to recommend, and easier to market outside its home territory. It also means that every episode carries more weight. There is less room for filler, less room to wander, more pressure to deliver quickly. So before you watch, it helps to understand this. El Turco is not asking for the same kind of patience as a traditional long-form Turkish drama. It is asking for a different viewing mindset. Fact number 3. The historical setting is part of the appeal, but this is also a character-driven survival story. Some viewers may go in expecting pure battlefield spectacle or a non-stop political history lesson. But El Turco becomes more interesting when you understand that the emotional core is not just war or history. At the center of the story is Hasan Balaban, a wounded Ottoman soldier trying to survive after the 1683 Vienna campaign. And that survival angle is a huge part of what makes the premise work. That changes the way you should watch the story. This is not just about armies, maps, and historical labels. It is also about displacement, identity, adaptation, trust, and reinvention. A man from one world suddenly finds himself in another world, and that clash creates the real drama. So if you approach El Turco only as a costume production, you may miss the more human side of what the series is trying to do. And honestly, that human angle is one of the smartest things about the project. Because a purely historical show can feel distant for some viewers. But a story about survival, suspicion, belonging, and transformation is much easier for international audiences to connect with emotionally. Fact number 4. This project matters because it pushes Jaan Yaman into a different performance lane. This is a very important point. Many actors become trapped by audience expectation. If people love them in one kind of role, the pressure to repeat that image becomes huge. But career growth does not happen by repeating the same energy forever. It happens when actors start testing different spaces, tones, and emotional demands. That is why El Turco matters. Whether someone loves every choice in the project or not, the series clearly represents a move away from the simplest version of Jaan Yaman's public image. It gives him a setting that is heavier, more physical, more dramatic, and more internationally framed. This is not just about looking good in a costume. It is about carrying a role that has myth, pain, danger, and symbolic weight. For fans, that makes the project important. For casual viewers, it makes the project interesting. Because even if someone discovered Jaan through lighter and more romantic roles, El Turco gives them a chance to see a different screen energy. And that kind of transition is always one of the most important moments in an actor's career. Fact number 5. El Turco was built as an international product, not just a local one. This is one of the biggest keys to understanding the series. From the casting to the language choices to the way the project has been positioned, El Turco clearly aims beyond one national market. It was designed to travel. That means the production choices are not random. They are part of a strategy. And when a series is designed to travel internationally, viewers should pay attention to different signals. Instead of asking only, how does this compare to a standard local TV series? It may be more useful to ask, how is this being packaged for multiple regions? What kind of audience is it trying to reach? What identity is it trying to build? That is why this project feels different in tone and ambition. It is not just about domestic success. It is about transnational visibility. It is about whether a Turkish star can carry a project that speaks to audiences across languages and markets. That is a much bigger question than a simple one-country TV launch. Fact number 6. Spain is one of the most important pieces of the El Turco story. This part should not be underestimated. When people talk about Jaan Yaman's international direction, Spain keeps showing up for a reason. It is not just random fan excitement. Spain has become one of the key spaces where his visibility, media attention, and project relevance continue to build. And El Turco sits inside that bigger pattern. This matters because audiences should not watch the series in isolation. El Turco is also part of a broader map. It connects to how Jaan is being positioned internationally, especially in markets where interest in him remains strong and where his projects can still generate conversation beyond pure gossip or fandom. Spain, in that sense, is not just another territory. It feels more like a testing ground, a signal market, and maybe even a bridge to the next phase. So when you watch El Turco, remember that you are not only watching a series. You are also watching part of a bigger career movement. And that makes the project more interesting than people may think at first glance. Fact number 7. If you watch El Turco expecting only hype, you may miss the real value of the project. This may be the most important fact of all. Sometimes fandom culture creates the wrong kind of pressure around a series. Everything has to be the biggest, the best, historic, unmatched, or world-shocking. But that kind of language can actually damage a viewer's experience. Because once people expect impossible greatness, even a solid and interesting project can feel disappointing. The smarter way to approach El Turco is this. Do not watch it as an overhyped miracle. Watch it as a meaningful step. Watch it as a transition project. Watch it as a sign of where Jaan Yaman's career may be heading. Watch it as a series that is trying to blend historical atmosphere, action, identity, and international strategy into one package. When you frame it that way, the value becomes much easier to see. Because not every important project is important for the exact same reason. Some projects are important because they dominate ratings. Some are important because they become cultural comfort shows. Some are important because they prove an actor can evolve. And some are important because they show where the next phase may begin. El Turco feels like that kind of project. It may not be the easiest project to categorize. It may not fit neatly into one box. But that is also why it deserves a closer look. And honestly, that may be the best way to explain the whole series in one sentence. El Turco is not just something you watch for the plot. It is also something you watch for what it represents. Asterisk. It represents risk. It represents ambition. It represents repositioning. And it represents a version of Jaan Yaman that audiences may still be learning how to read. So before you watch El Turco, remember these 7 facts. It is not a typical Turkish TV drama. It is shorter and tighter than many viewers expect. It is not just historical spectacle, but also a survival and identity story. It pushes Jaan Yaman into a different performance lane. It was built as an international product. Spain is a major part of its meaning and momentum. And the best way to watch it is not through hype, but through context. Once you understand those 7 things, the series becomes much clearer. You stop asking the wrong questions, and you start noticing what the project is actually trying to do. And that is when El Turco becomes much more interesting. So now I want to ask you, what is the most important thing for you before watching a series like this? The story, the acting, the production scale, or the international ambition behind it? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more clean and respectful updates on Jaan Yaman, El Turco, Sandokan and more. And if you want to support the channel more directly, don't forget to click the join button below. See you in the next video.